Sports Talk. I'm your host, Mike Bernard. And damn, Jerry, I did good. I think I got Coach on.
Hey,
Coach,
Bill.
you there?
Yes, sir. I'm here.
All right. We have Coach Mickey Autrey. I got Jerry on too. I have my co-host, Coach Autrey. He's not in the studio. We have some rules till they open everything up. You know, with this virus stuff going on, only one person in the studio, but his name's Jerry Abear. He was our sideline guy. How many years you did that, Jerry?
About 5.
5 years before Big Dave passed away, Coach. But
Oh, okay. All right, Jerry.
he actually said, how old were you? He went to the Cecilia car game for the state championship. That was when Cecilia won. Okay, that was the good game. But
Yeah.
we have Coach Mickey Autrey on the line. He was back when Big Dave and I made our run broadcasting high school football in the early years, when Cecilia had a great 4-year run where they made it. Lord, they let's see, you play 15 games a year usually if you make it to the state championship. So that's 15 and 15 is, y'all played 59 out of 60 weeks in 4 years. That's pretty good.
That was pretty good. It was something to be very proud of. The kids in Cecilia enjoyed it, and they still talk about it to this day.
Of course, you were an assistant coach on those Cecilia teams. Of course, Coach Wag, Coach James Wag is back. Coach Wag passed away last summer. You know, Coach, we decided to we had an award. We named an award after him. The Player of the Year award this past year at the Big Dave banquet, and his wife came in and his kids. It was pretty nice, man. I'm glad we did that to honor him this year. But he did a great job.
That's very deserving.
Yeah, he did a great job
Very
at
deserving.
Cecilia, and I believe he is the only coach. Now you have to understand the details. The only coach in the state of Louisiana. Now there have been coaches that have won state championships at 2 different schools, but he's the only one to win state championships at 2 different schools and go undefeated at both schools for those seasons. It was the undefeated
That's correct.
part.
That's correct. Yes.
Before we get going, I'm curious, how's your son Jonathan doing?
Jonathan's doing well. He's doing very well. He's at the Magnet of Academy Cultural Arts up in Opelousas. He
Okay.
teaches computer technology and so forth. He's enjoying it. He's doing very well up there, and he likes it.
I remember he was very smart kid. What year did he graduate from Cecilia?
Well, he was with us in '95. He was a freshman.
He was a freshman in. Okay, that's what it was. I knew he
Yeah.
I knew he wasn't a senior on that team. But of course,
No, sir.
Cecilia made a great run during those years, and people tend to forget that on the state championship team, Jamaican D'Artes was actually had gone he had left the year before, and
That's correct. That's correct.
this is just me talking, but I always felt that I don't know. Yeah, he should have gotten a ring, even though he wasn't on that team, because I mean that. I never seen a kid so heartbroken after that loss to Amite. Dave and I did that game at Cecilia. Rodney Boykin, I think, was the quarterback for Amite, and PJ, I want to say Williams, but I don't think that was his name. His first 2 initials were PJ, and he was a receiver. He ended up going to play for Tulane, but that was a very close game, and it was a heartbreaking loss. But talk about how much Jamaican meant to Cecilia back in those years.
Mike, if I could do one thing before we go on right here, it's something I used to do every morning for the school, and of course we did it regularly. But I get on the PA system and give it one of those, and they still talk about it to this day. The kids love it, the adults love it, and if you don't mind, I'm going to go ahead and repeat it.
Go ahead.
Good morning, you Bulldog and Bulldogettes. How y'all doing? Well, today's a day we review for the '95 state championship year. And this is Mike and I, Coach Autrey, talking about it. That's it, Mike. I used to do that every morning.
Bulldogs and Bulldogettes.
I would tell Bulldogettes, Bulldog and Bulldogettes. And I'd give him a stupid joke like, why did the chicken cross the road to get on the other side? And of course I'd go back and say, you get it to get on the other side. And of course I'd come out in the class, after that and walk in to get ready for class. And my daughter, who was a senior that year, she was one of the trainers, and she'd just look at me and roll her eyes and say, Daddy, really?
That's all right. Just deal with it.
Great memories. Great memories. No, Jim, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was going to ask, Coach, do you have another son named Matt?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Matthew's presently coaching in Cecilia. He assists Cody Champagne in girls softball, and he's assistant football coach.
Yes. That's okay, because Matt and I are the same age. When he played at UL his freshman year, I was an equipment manager on the football team, so I know Matt.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Matt and I go way back to college. I keep in touch with him. I see him in random places every now and then, but I haven't talked to him in a few years, and I just wanted to check up and see how he was doing.
Well, he got married a girl, Caitlin Smith from Crowley. So he's been married 2 years. They just celebrated their second anniversary.
I know I think they had dated for a little while.
Yes, they did. Yes.
Yeah, I think I do remember him getting married. Yes. Okay. Now
yes, sir.
I remember that. Okay. Good.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
We talking a former.
And my daughter, of course, she's a teacher, and her husband, Jason Falk, he coaches in Cecilia as well. So it kind of stayed in the family. All of them were a part of the '95 team, and so it brings back a lot of memories.
Jason actually posted one of the videos of the Evangel game. He put some music behind it now. They have another. He calls it, I don't know what his name is, but it goes by Cornerstone. But if you do that on YouTube, they have that person has a bunch of games. They have the St. James game up. I haven't seen any film of the Car game yet, but I'm talking about the '95 season. Coach, talk about the different places that we talking to former assistant coach in Cecilia, Coach Mickey Autrey. Talking about the great run Cecilia had between '92 and '95, where they made it to the state championship game 3 out of 4 years and capped it off with a state championship victory in '95. Talk about the different places you coach. I know you've coached at Opelousas, Cecilia, and where else, Coach?
I was at New Iberia 1 year with Coach Wally Fraze. Mm-hmm. And then Coach Wag and I left in '02 from Cecilia, and we went to Beauchesne.
Okay.
And we were over
so
there
you were with him at Beauchesne. Yeah, I remember.
Yes, sir.
Coach Wag.
Yes,
Coach
sir.
Wag had actually moved to the press box for a while. I think he had gout like me. So I mean, I haven't had a flare up in about 5 years, but we hanging in there.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Of course. Talk about your coaching staff back then at Cecilia. Coach Wag was the head coach, of course. The coordinators and the defensive coach, Coach Hooter was there. Who else, Coach?
Well, Coach Guidry was our defensive coordinator.
Yeah, Coach Pee Wee.
And whenever we used to sit in on game planning day on the weekends, it was really neat to listen to Coach Guidry and Coach Wag map out the plans for the coming week. And defensively speaking. And it was interesting, and I still remember that conversation we had whenever they were talking about the Evangel week. And Coach Guidry was set on it, and Coach Wag was set on it that we were going to go after them. Mm-hmm. They had never been, gotten to, so to speak. And that's what their plan was, and it worked. It worked. And then we had Coach Hooter, of course, and then Durbin Johnson. Mm-hmm. I believe his dad and mom were a part of the Northside program. Coach Johnson was back.
Coach Felix. Okay. Coach Felix's son.
Yeah. And then Coach Hebert, Jody Hebert. That was the coaching staff.
Okay. Now, let me see. Of course, I'm trying to get my train of thought back. Of course, Coach, that was some memorable years. Coach, let me just say this. Last year when Coach Wag passed away, I went to the funeral home. And I got there and a few other players showed up and Coach Pee Wee was there. And you could tell he was down. He taking it pretty hard, somber mood. And we started talking about those old games. And at least for an hour before they closed the funeral home down, I was glad that we could talk about and let him reminisce, because his spirit really picked up talking about those old games with his players. David Dupuis was there, and some other guys, and it was pretty cool to see. But of course, I remember when Jamaican was a freshman, and in '92 y'all ended up losing to Jennings 14-7 in the Dome, but y'all made a great run. A lot of people thought that was a possibility, that Bro Bridge and Cecilia, and everybody knows that is the big. I mean, Big Dave taught me, and I learned, is the biggest rivalry in the Acadiana area. And if you don't believe it, you're just wrong. You know what I mean? And this is coming from an outsider. I mean, on those nights, say the wife is from Cecilia and the husband's from Bro Bridge, they sit on opposite sides.
That's correct.
That's just how it is. That's just how it is.
That's correct. Oh yeah. That goes way back. That goes way back. In fact, when I moved down here with my dad, when I was a freshman in high school, and that was in '67, and my first year of football was '67, my sophomore year. And when we got ready to play Bro Bridge in the old stadium in Cecilia, oh my gosh, it was standing room only and 4 or 5 deep around the track. And then it stayed like that for a few years. It was a big rivalry game, and a lot of people attended it.
We're talking to Coach Mickey Autrey, former assistant coach at Cecilia, talking about the great years of Cecilia football between '92 and '95. But what I'm saying is, Cecilia won in the state semis that year, but Bro Bridge lost in the state semis. Can you now again in '94, because we broadcasted that game, and I'll get to that one in a second, because I have an interesting story. But in '92, Bro Bridge lost to Jennings 14-0. So just think, if Bro Bridge would have beat Bro Bridge and Cecilia in the state championship game, oh my God, you'd have to turn off the lights and hide the keys, when you leave those two cities, because there wouldn't have been a soul left in any of those towns.
Not hardly. Nope.
Talk about what you think got y'all over the hump. You lose an Ed Singleton and went play for LSU. You lose a Jamaican D'Artez and went play for play for Tulane.
Correct.
Talk about what got y'all over the hump. I mean, y'all lose to Jennings in '92, 14-7 for the state championship. Then y'all play, I believe it was Carr, and I think it was pretty much the same score, but just flip-flop from '95. Y'all lose 12-9 in '93, then y'all win the state title in '95. And then y'all losing the state semis, I believe it, the A-Meet game. We call that game, I want to say 21-20 maybe, or something like that.
Yep, 21-20.
What do you think got y'all over the hump?
Mike, the big thing, those 3 years of playing back-to-back, or especially '92 and '93, it was just something. '92 we went, and of course it was fun to be there, and we kind of looked at it that way. And then we go back in '93, which Coach Wag kind of, was amazed at it and was pleasantly surprised at it. And then I think we thought we had a better team in '94.
Okay.
But of course things didn't fall well. And then in '95, we come back and it just got better. Coach Wag always used to preach to the guys and the coaches as well. There's 3 seasons during the year of football. Non-district games, you try to play well and get yourself ready for the district games, and the district games were the second phase. And then the playoffs was the third game, or the third season. And the guys believed in that. And Mike, when we got to the playoffs, we just got to be a really good football team. I mean, we played Kaplan in the first round, and then Edie White in the second round, and we go to St. James, and that was just a game where our confidence level, we knew we were going to win. It was hard. It was one of the hardest games I think we had. If you compare it with the Evangel game, we just scored tit for tat with Evangel, but the St. James game was just such a rivalry game, and I think it, kind of like affected Coach Wag in a positive way to say we're going to win it.
Yeah, because people forget.
It was a heck of a football game.
People forget that Coach Wag had coached at when he coached Rodel Melanson and everybody over there,
Correct.
At St. James.
Yep.
And then let's see, I think I'm trying to look back. I believe y'all beat St. James in the state quarterfinals in '93. Again, 21-3. I don't think y'all played them in '94, but I mean, y'all played them in, like two out of the 4 years in the playoffs, and that's where he was from. So it was like a very big win.
Homecoming.
Yeah.
Yeah, homecoming
very big win
him,
for him.
in that sense. Yeah. Yes. And, it just, I think we got to be a really good football team during that playoff run. Our guys were playing up at a level. Corey Green, he later on went on to Tulane as well.
Yeah.
And Jerome Wiltz, who's now coaching at St. Martinville. These guys, Jermaine Davis, these guys just got better and better in the offensive line that I worked with. They just had an air about themselves. They were confident, and, they knew if we had to drop the ball the length of the field, we would. It was just, it was a fun year, and, of course, it was a trying year. You just wondered when it was going to happen, but Coach Wag wouldn't have any part of it, and neither would the seniors, and that was a big thing, too. That senior group we had that year were true leaders. I mean, you had that at many schools. When those seniors step up to the plate, it's fun to be around. Fun to be around.
He wasn't on that state championship team, but talk about Jamaican. I still say him and Kevin Falk were probably the two best high school players in the 90s, in this area. I mean, arguably, people may debate that and have other players, but they were two of the best. I remember Kevin Foote, I think he wrote an article in the Daily Advertiser when he was a freshman. Jamaican had a great game, and it was his first game as a freshman, and I think it said, get in an area, meet Jamaican Dortes, something like that. Just talk about
there was something like that. I remember the article that you're talking about. Yep. Yeah.
Just talk a little bit about what Jamaican meant.
I think he had he kind of set the precedent for a lot of guys to follow, especially the skill position kids. In the secondary where he played and on offense, the running back that he played, I think he kind of set a precedent for those guys. Corey Jackson following behind Jamaican. Who would have thought Corey Jackson would have been that type of running back? Honestly. I mean, when you looked at him, he looked like he weighed 110 pounds soaking wet. Of course, he weighed more than that. But he just had an air about himself. But Jamaicans kind of like set the pace for the guys. And a lot of the seniors that we had in 95, I've heard some of them talk about that we owe Jamaican that. And they felt like he was a part of it, even though he wasn't. But those guys really believed in Jamaican, and Jamaican had that type of attitude. And, of course, another thing you had said earlier about the ring business, they did retire his jersey, number 19. So Jamaican just kind of like provided that leadership for us, when he was younger, and I think it carried over to those seniors in 95.
We did a few basketball games over there over the years, Dave and I remember I'd have to run phone lines. And I'd have to go back there in the coach's offices, and I can still see his helmet up on the wall, back there by the locker room. And I still think he's, I still think he might be the only one with his number retired. There might be some others. I mean, we give an award out to Travis Landry.
We had a Davis boy.
Okay.
We had a Davis boy that his jersey was retired, Pat Davis.
Okay.
And Pat Davis had played back in the late 70s, early 80s, maybe, but more late 70s. His number was 21.
Okay.
And his number was retired. But the Jamaican was just that type. Now, an interesting thing is Jamaican had that football speed, what we call football speed. You've heard that term before. And Corey Jackson was the same way. And, of course, I was the head track coach. And Jamaican, we couldn't get him on the track. I mean, he was not that fast. Track speed.
Let me just say this.
Jumper.
Let me just say this. From my perspective.
What's that? Yeah.
Okay, 40 time, he ain't going to run under 4.5. No way. But for 10 yards, there was nobody quicker. I'm just telling you.
That's the best way to say it.
For
Mike.
10
that's
yards,
a good way to say it.
For 10 yards, there was nobody quicker. And that's why he was great as a defensive back. And let me say another thing. I forgot if it was his junior year or senior year. But he's the only kid I know since I've been doing high school football. Only kid I know. When the All-State team comes out, in the same year, he makes All-State on offense and defense.
Yep.
He made All-State running back, first team, All-State defensive back, first team. That's pretty good.
Yeah. I like your 10-yard analogy. I like that because that's about what I'm saying. He just couldn't make the track team as far as on the relays and stuff like that. But he was a heck of a jumper now. And in fact, we had seen him jumping when he was in junior high, and we knew he was going to be good at it. But Corey Jackson was the same way, a lot like that. Didn't have a lot of breakaway speed, but you get both those kids, like you said, that 10 yards, they could cut on a dime, and they could pick you up those extra yards.
Now, look, I love Raymond Colley, okay? And Jerry's on the line, and he's seen Raymond make great runs. I remember the last year Dave got to cover him before he passed. He might have been a freshman, sophomore. He made a run against Northside where he fielded a punt and he hurdled. He ran towards one side of the field, hurdled a kid, ran completely over to the other side and it was just a great run. But we were talking on social media somewhere about who was the fastest. Now, let me say this. I love Raymond, and I don't know. I thought it was Raymond because he won state in 100 and 200. But a lot of people think that Corey Jackson is just as fast as Raymond. Corey Jackson was fast.
Yeah.
What do you?
But like you said, I see the same thing with him. Corey Jackson was the same way. He did not run on our relay teams.
Oh, he did?
On the track. No.
I know one thing. That run he made against Evangel, 76 yards off right tackle. He outran everybody. That's all I know.
Yep, he sure did. And like I said, those guys were like that. They just had that air about themselves, running with a lot of confidence. I mean, when you think about it, you saw it when we played Carr in the Dome. And Corey Jackson broke his wrist.
Oh, it was his
broke
wrist.
His forearm. And he couldn't come back. And, they didn't want him back. And he's on the sideline. His mom's on the sideline. And, everybody's consoling him and stuff like this. But, they came up to Coach Wagon and asked him to put him back in. That was just the type of kids they were. They just were not to be denied when they played that game.
Let me just tell you.
Another funny thing is when Rusty Bearward, I still remember this to this day. I saw the hit. You probably saw it on the sideline.
He didn't have a pass concussion protocol that night.
Oh no! I mean, he got laid out on the sideline, and Andy Chance was the backup, and Andy Chance is standing over and telling Rusty, "Get up, Rusty," because Andy did not want to go in that game in those conditions at that time, because Andy was a sophomore.
Right.
So anyway, Rusty had to stay out one play, and then he came back in the game. But that was a tremendous hit that he received. I mean, he took a hit.
Now, Andy Chance, I believe, made all-state 3 years in a row as kicker. People don't realize that.
Yeah.
People forget about that.
Yeah.
Now, going back to that 94 season, I'm skipping over, 92, you lose to Jennings 14-7. 93 in the Dome. 93, you lose to Carr 12-9. And Dave and I started doing high school football in 94 together. And, of course, interesting story. I have one of my best friends. In fact, I talked to him this week. I was in his wedding. But he lives in Charlotte, North Carolina now. And his sister was getting married, okay? And I was very close to the family. I was invited to the wedding. And it just so happened it was on the Friday night that Bro Bridge and Cecilia were playing in the second round of the state playoffs. And I remember Big Dave saying, "Oh no, you can't go. You gotta be here. This is a big game. You must be crazy."
Oh, yeah.
So they even told me, I went to my buddy's house and I said, "Man, I mean, he said, oh no, Mike, you got to go do the game." He says, "When we at the reception, we're going to be in the parking lot listening." Yeah, I said, "Okay." He says, "Just come to the reception after." And I remember showing up like at midnight because it took forever because the game was played in Bro Bridge. And it took forever for us to get out of there. And I'm trying, Cecilia won 10-6, second round. And it took, so I didn't get there till like midnight. But I'll never forget after the game. Of course, I believe the game ended on a Jamaican D'Artes fumble. But from where we were sitting, it looked like the kid for Amy, the helmet hit the ball dead on. Anybody would have fumbled. It flew in the air. I mean, it was not his fault. And after the game, we were leaving. And, you know, sometimes when you lose a heartbreak, I remember when Bro Bridge lost to Neville a few years ago, Traven Durrell, Lamar Lewis, they took him forever to leave the field. And we had packed up our stuff and we were leaving and we ran into Jamaican and he was crying. And he was, you know, these kids, the leaders, that's how they are. He felt he lost the game. And I remember Dave looking at him and he says, "Son," but you got to know Dave's personality. He started like chewing him out. Like, "Don't you ever blame yourself." He says, "Because it wasn't for you, you know, Cecilia would be nothing, you know, not nothing, but you know what I mean. You meant so much to this team." I mean, but that's one of my lowest points in broadcasting high school football in all these years. I'd have to think of another one, but just to see, he was heartbroken. I'll never forget. I think he thought that was the year that Cecilia could win state. They lose 21-20 to Amy at home, and Amy ends up beating of course, y'all would have played St. James in the state finals. You know, another, you know, Coach Wag against St. James, but they beat St. James by 17, you know?
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's just like, I guess that everybody felt y'all might have had St. James' number for some reason, but that was a heartbreaking loss. I'll never forget it.
It sure was. And like I said, the group that came up, you know, that were juniors that year with Jamaican, it seemed like they just, you know, like I said earlier, they just kind of like had a rallying cry that it ain't going to happen again. And, you know, the next year was, you know, 15-0.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so,
Jerry, you have a question? Yeah, go ahead.
So Dave and Mike tell me the story. Now, granted, like I said, I've gotten to be part of a few of those years of the rivalry, but I wasn't part of the rivalry when both teams were like top 5 in the state each, like it was when you were coaching at Cecilia. Talk about the week as well as the crowd that always led up to the Civil War between Cecilia and Bro Bridge.
Oh gosh, I mean, it's like you said, you know, when you had boy marrying girl from Bro Bridge, or vice versa, boy from Bro Bridge marrying a girl from Cecilia, it was a rivalry. You know, I mean, when I coached in Bro Bridge earlier in my career, you know, it was the same thing. It was just, you know, an intense rivalry. You know, and it wasn't a bad rivalry. You know, I didn't see that part. Now, you know, being a player and a coach at that time, you know, in different times, era, that I didn't see the negativeness of it. It was just, you know, camaraderie. You know, we line up and we're going to war with each other.
Yeah. I love the pageantry of high school football. They also talk about it in Texas where, you know, you have, like Dave would tell me stories, even with St. Martinville being involved as well. You have a matchup, whether it's Cecilia St. Martinville, Bro Bridge St. Martinville, Cecilia Bro Bridge. Back in the day when both teams were top 5, top 10 in the state, and, you know, the winner of game wins district, and hearing stories of how the stadium would be sold out by 6 o'clock for a kickoff. I mean, that had to have been there had to have been a lot of adrenaline just going through your body, I'm sure, walking to that sideline before kickoff. I've had the chance to revel in a few of those experiences, but as a coach, I'm sure the mental state was a lot different than what the fans were doing, right? I'm sure it was more focused on the game itself rather than the emotions that go behind the rivalry.
Sure, and the thing I noticed with our kids, both sets of kids, that they just kind of stayed to the ground. They stayed at ground level. I don't think we had that big hoorah type thing. Our kids just kind of stayed focused. And they did that for the whole season in '95. They just stayed focused. They didn't get caught up in the rivalry situation or a must-win type thing or anything like that. They just stayed focused, and that was a big attribute to Coach Wag, because he kind of kept them low key and he kept them to the ground, and Coach Guidry the same way. There were stories when, Coach Guidry and Coach Wag had a good rapport with one another. There was one time we were going down to, I think, to play ERAT down the interstate, and Coach Wag had a couple of guys on the bus with us, and they were cutting up. Now, we had the other bus behind us, and Coach Guidry was on that bus. Well, Coach Wag had enough. Stop the bus. And he told the two boys, get off. Well, Coach, what are we going to do? Get off. Well, both of the boys got off. Coach Wag left them on the side of the road. He said, let's go. So the bus took off, and, of course, Coach Guidry was right behind them. And, of course, he gave them the chewing out and everything else. Get on the bus. So he picked them up, and we continued on to ERAF. But, those type of things with the relationship that was there, one was going to cover the other, no matter what. And if it included the players, we did the same thing, with them. And it's the same thing as what we used to do after practices every day. We'd bring them home. Coach Wag got a van that we'd alternate taking time, week here, week there to bring the kids home in the afternoon. So they had no reason not to stay for practice or to have a ride home. They always had a ride home.
Now, if I seem to recall, the game against Edna Carr, I remember this well because actually, ironically, my dad and we had a family friend that played for Carr. And I just remember the name Cecilia. I don't remember where Cecilia was located. I mean, again, I was 6 years old, but I remember following the game closely because a lot of people we were in the suite. We had a lot of close friends that were coaching at UL at the time that were all pulling for you guys. And again, I was just wanted to see some good football at such a young age. I was still learning about the sport. And I remember, I remember this. I do remember this. It was a low-scoring game. I remember it was a big defensive battle, and there were one or two big plays that really turned the tide for you. But I remember the last play of the game. Edna Carr had the ball and threw it up for grabs. It was a Hail Mary, and I just remember.
I remember the play.
And the entire Cecilia bench and the entire Cecilia side erupted. And that was the first time I've ever seen a team celebrate a state championship game. Do you remember that play? What was
I remember
it. Play of the game? What were you thinking? Was it just, oh my gosh, don't let him score? Oh my gosh, we've come such a long way. As a coach, last play of the game, what are you thinking, and what do you remember about that last play to solidify that state title?
It's exactly the way you just described it, Jerry. The same thing. When we saw the ball go up, and if I'm not mistaken, it seems like it was Chris Broussard that made the interception.
It was. And the quarterback was Noel Ellis. He was a defensive back, okay? And his son ended up playing for Carr and I think for Tulane too, years later. That's how long we've been doing this. I'll never forget. They were on the 30-yard line, and he threw it almost to the end zone. And I said, yeah, but Dave, they can't get it to the end zone, and there's only time for one play. And they just put him in. I guess he had the best arm. He wasn't the best quarterback, but he threw the ball. And I remember I said incomplete, and Dave said, "He got it out there, Bandit." But he threw it a mile. But Chris Broussard did have the interception. But the quarterback was a defensive back named Noel Ellis. But I'll never forget that. We have a caller, Coach, and I think I think you know who it is. I think it's Ian Ozan.
Uh-oh.
ESPN1420 and .com. Welcome to Big Time Sports Talk.
Good morning, Vandy. Good morning, Judy. Good morning, Coach Autrey. How are you, sir?
I'm doing fine, sir. I'm doing fine. Enjoying myself today.
Good. I know you've been talking about Cecilia, and man, forgive me for jumping.
That's fine.
Down the road.
It's still about Coach Autrey. Go ahead.
Coach Autrey, not only was he an assistant football coach, head track and field coach, he was also my PE teacher for a couple of years. And in fact, my one shining athletic moment came during his PE class. We were playing volleyball, and somebody was absent, so Coach Autrey got on the floor and played. He got up to spike, and I don't know what I found. It might have been the shoes that day. I blocked it. Then I landed on Coach Autrey's foot and sprained my ankle, so that was the end of my athletic career. But Coach Autrey's been around football, but I want to touch on your track career as a head coach. You've coached Beauchamp's last state championship team. It was either the 04 or 05 track squad that won state. You had a load of talent on that squad. What was it like being with those guys, and those girls for that matter, and having all that talent at Beauchamp and being able to go to state that season? Because that squad was loaded. You had the Davises, you had, and I'm forgetting who else was there, but you had a stacked team that year. And I think with all the success you had in football, the fact that you were a state championship track coach gets lost in the shuffle.
Well, I appreciate that compliment, son. Yeah, when we went to Beauchamp, well, you got to remember this, too. If I'm kind of backtracking here, in 91, we won the state championship in track in Cecilia in AA. And to me, and Coach Wag even said that, and we felt like it, that was the turning point for our athletes coming in and believing. It's kind of like a booster shot that we got in 91 when we won it, and then we came out runner-up again in track, and then all of a sudden we hit the stride in football in 92 on. So, you know, it was definitely a complementary of each other with track and football. And then when we went to Beauchamp, same thing. In 04, we came out runner-up, and then in 05, we won it all. And, of course, we made some strides in football. We made the playoffs a couple of times, you know, at Beauchamp. But in 05, those track kids, and if you remember, the Wheelers, Eli and Uric.
Right.
Okay, well, those two boys there, they just loved running track. Of course, they played football for us, too. And, again, it was a recruiting tool that worked well for us with the track going to play football. And, of course, Carlos Davis. You know, we had a lot of kids. We had a Richard boy that threw the shot put and discus for us. So, you know, it kind of fell right for us. You know, it kind of fell right for us. So it was fun coaching now. Of course, we ran on a track that was about as bad as asphalt on the worst road that you can have. But the kids just, you know, they did it and they believed in what they were doing, and it was fun. The kids that we had at Beauchamp were very similar to the ones in Cecilia. They just were competitive. They were very competitive and not to be denied.
And it's funny that you mentioned.
Thank you.
It's interesting you mentioned Wesley Richard, because with him throwing the javelin, the shot put, Josh Faj, I think, also did some field events and was a lineman. You look at the back and forth, and how many of those kids were on football, and as you mentioned, contributed to that first playoff run in 2005. And then some of them who were still around for the second run, either 06 or 07, I forget which year, it was after I graduated. But is that success, and how the success in track breeded the success in football, is something that's not yet been replicated at Beauchamp.
Well, it was fun. You know, Coach Wag, when we went through there together, Coach Wag liked other sports to be successful. And when being the head track coach, Coach Wag, you know, he just made sure that we had what we needed to be successful. You know, whether it be uniforms, whether it be implements for throwing, you know, whatever we needed, he saw to it that we got it. And it was the same way in Cecilia. You know, that he saw to it that we got what we needed to be successful, because he saw that it would pay dividends down the road.
and it certainly did at Beauchamp. And thank you for all you did for all of us when we were there, and for me, even though I sprained my ankle in PE class. Thank you for everything. I have a hell of a lot. Got a lot of great memories of you and of those teams and being around. So it certainly left an impression on me, and I think that I can say the same for a lot of my classmates and those who were able to play under you as either a track athlete or on the football team or wherever else.
I appreciate that, son. Thank you very much.
Thanks for the call, Ian.
Anytime. Y'all have a good one.
All right. Okay.
Thank you, son.
Fast forward to the 95 state championship season. We got to get to that now. Beat Kaplan 28 to, well, let me say this. People don't realize that I think y'all were battle tested that season for the playoffs because you played in the regular season the two parish rivalry games, so those were hyped up games. Y'all, I believe y'all beat St. Martinville, I think 17-14 that regular season. They made it to the second round of the state playoffs and lost to Wasserman. And y'all also, and that was in 4A, and y'all were AAA back then.
Correct.
And St. Martinville was 4A, and Breaux Bridge was 4A also. And Breaux Bridge, the same night that y'all beat Evangel, they lost to Leesville and Cecil Collins on the road.
Correct.
And I'll never forget, Dave got a call at the hotel room. We did, because when the helicopter landed on the field, it was so late, we just decided to sleep overnight. And he got a call the next day. He said, don't tell Mike nothing, but he says, I think I saw a running back that might be better than Kevin Falk. And I said, there's no way. But so y'all beat two great teams, but y'all beat Kaplan first round of the playoffs. Then I remember doing the E.D. White game on the radio. Beat E.D. White 24-3 because a friend of mine is a big LSU guy. The big Ragu was the color guy for E.D. White. They had come to Cecilia. But then y'all go on this run, and we were talking earlier, Coach, and I've talked to a lot of people, and this might be the greatest run of any high school team in this area. I'm not saying they were the best, but as far as for a run, nobody's ever gone on the road, I don't believe, and beaten an undefeated team in the quarterfinals, semifinals, and finals all on the road. And you can say what you want about Carr. Carr, it was in a dome. You might say neutral site, but Carr was from New Orleans. So you go on the road, first of all, to St. James. And I remember Corey Green, I think, had busted his nose. And I wasn't sure. A lot of people wasn't sure if he could continue in the game. And I think, Coach, you talk about Coach Pee Wee Guidry and how the rapport he had with Coach Wag. I mean, up until Coach Wag passed away, they would eat at each other's house, probably every week. But I think he told Coach Wag, he says, no, Corey's not coming out the game. And Corey had already said he wasn't coming out the game. But I think he had broke his nose, I think. Talk about that.
That's true. That's very, very true. Very true. Those kids wouldn't, Coach Wag may be cautious, at a time like that and say they shouldn't go out and play or whatever. But Coach Guidry had a knack for just kind of like giving them a booster shot and get back in the game, and that's what the kids did. It was going to take a lot for those kids to come out, kind of like when Corey Jackson went out in the Carr game. But Corey Green was tough nose. I mean,
he was a warrior, dude.
He made his name. To me, he was one of the ones that made his name in that run. Corey Green and then Jerome Wiltz. They all just, Jermaine Davis. I mean, they just played like they were 6'6". 245 pounds.
I remember after the
Evangel played.
Yeah, I remember after the Evangel game, we went on the field after, and Dave told Corey, great game. And he looked at David, he said, we not through yet, Big Daddy. It's like he had already moved on from that game. He was ready for the state championship game. But I'll never forget, he was just a tough guy. When there was a measurement, he would always step up by the referee. He was always front and center with every big play. And, of course, it was a rivalry game. They ended up winning the game 13-12. And I always say the greatest game we ever broadcasted was the Evangel game. But that, other than that dang helicopter landing on the field, that game was something. I mean, that St. James game, I think that was 4 minutes and some change. And St. James had the ball. And I remember calling it. Cornell Davis was playing left defensive end. And Corey shaded him. came from his linebacker position and shaded him to the outside. And I mean, he went around Cornell and he had a bead on that quarterback. He hit the quarterback, caused the fumble, and recovered the fumble. And at that time, Cecilia was down. And I think y'all recovered it somewhere around the 25 or 30 yard line. And Corey Jackson scored on a running play, I don't know, with a couple of minutes left in the game to give y'all the lead. But talk about Corey, that play with Corey Green.
Oh, well, I mean, it's like I said, you know, with those kids, they all took their turns. You know, that game was fixing to get out of hand. I mean, from our standpoint, you know, you know, we were on the threshold of losing that game. You know, and the kids just take their turns of making the play, and Corey Green did that. You know, and you know, it's just one of those things. That's what they believed in doing, and that's what he did.
Of course, y'all take the lead, and then I believe Corey Jackson had about an 11-yard run with less than a minute to go to ice it. You know, y'all had the ball.
Yeah.
And then y'all go to Evangel on the road, and I remember we couldn't find a school, and Dave and I were arguing in the car, and we had a guy named Doug that was with us, and he said, if y'all would quit hollering at each other, he says, they got this bus that says Cecilia on it. Why don't we just follow that bus? You know, so we beat the buses and the team out there. But I'll never forget, they handed us papers at Evangel that said no profanity, no alcohol products, and no tobacco products allowed on this campus. And poor Coach Hooter lit a cigarette, and this lady came tell him something, and he says, lady, I'm too damn nervous to, it's going to take the National Guard to make me put out this cigarette. But it was just it was just a great game. I mean, they had like 7 D1 players. They had Philip Dees, who went to North Carolina. They had Bub Alexander, who went to Texas A&M. Abram Booty, that went to LSU. Huh?
You know, in their history.
I know.
You know, they had won 3 previous state championships the years before.
They had,
they had such a tradition.
And that loss there. Actually, I think they won 2 previous state championships. Then they had that loss, and then they won 50 in a row and 3 more state championships. So y'all were like the only blemish between it all. Y'all were that blemish.
Yep.
But who they had? Eric Jefferson, the USA Today Defensive Player of the Year. Jonathan Williams, he went to Illinois. Jonathan Williams went to Baylor. I mean, Cole Pittman went to Texas. This team that might have been their best team ever. It was absolutely loaded. Y'all went out there, and I remember y'all took a quick 14-0 lead. They came back, tied the score, and Corey Jackson probably made the greatest run in Cecilia history, a 76-yard run with 4 minutes left to give y'all the lead, but then they came back and tied it, but Andy Chance kicked the field goal. Talk a little bit about that game, Coach.
Well, you know, it's like we said, the one with Chris Broussard, I remember us putting it in, Coach Wag and I putting it in, of switching up Chris Broussard at that particular position, because we felt like that when we roll out away from it, Chris Broussard would be wide open on the backside. And sure enough, it's exactly the way, you know, Coach Wag saw it, you know, and when he called it. And, I mean, it was like night and day. I mean, we put that in just a week before because of their over pursuit. You know, and then we had the plays with Corey Jackson. We had what we called the Eagle Special. So we pulled the left guard and the left tackle that would come around and lead block up on the opposite side, and Corey Jackson would follow him, and he hit the sideline. It was over.
You saw part of team.
You know, so yeah.
You know what's funny, Coach? If you watch one of the videos of right before he makes the run, they on the PA system they had this eagle that they would go, you know, and make an eagle sound, and you call it Eagle Special. Well, they got the special all right, because I'll never forget when you came down the ladder after the game. Dave and I looked at you and we tried to interview you, but you were too emotional. You were like, I'll never forget your exact words. We coming home. We going to the dome.
Mike, you got to bring him out down.
whatever that noise was. But I remember hollering at Dave. I said, it's like they shot him out of a cannon, Big Daddy. And Dave I can't say what Dave said because FCC regulations. But Dave never realized what he said.
I mean, I know how loud that damn eagle was now, Mike. I mean, I was sitting right next to that damn thing up in the press box.
Okay.
And I mean, when that thing would screech, oh my gosh.
But
and there was one of our filmers up there, and he was doing the same thing as me. You know, he was wanting to shut it off or pull it out of the extension cord or whatever because that son of a gun was loud.
We have about 3 minutes left with you, but talk about, of course, Mr. Champagne ended up having a heart attack. I believe Cornell Davis's mom may have had a medical issue, and they had to bring in an Air Med helicopter in the middle of the third quarter. It was the most unique and crazy game I've ever seen, you know. And to this day, Coach Pee Wee Guidry and Coach Wag says it gave the defense a break. Do you feel like maybe that helicopter landed because y'all were blitzing them all night long? Y'all were the only team to sack them all year, you know.
That's right. And that was the game plan, like I said
helicopter
earlier.
landing in the middle of the field.
You know, I don't know, you know, if we were, and I know it was there, you know, but we did talk about how things were going. You know, we couldn't pay too much attention to that. We couldn't let our kids pay too much attention to that. So we just kept, you know, kind of like checking the game plan, making sure everything was working the way we wanted, that the kids were okay. We replenished them with fluids and so forth. You know, they did get that little extra break, you know, without a doubt. You know, and of course it's the same way on the other side too. They did too.
Oh yeah,
you know,
yeah,
but,
exactly.
You know, it was just one of those things where I guess you could say it worked well for us. You know, and the kids responded. You know, it really didn't show a lot mentally on us. I don't think. I don't think our kids reacted heavily to that because if they had, I think we'd have made some mistakes. You know, following that.
But,
you know, and again, I just don't think it happened for us. Our kids responded favorably. They knew that people from Cecilia had come up there to see them play, and you know they were playing with the confidence that you know that they had.
And of course, y'all ended up going to the Dome the next week and capped it off with a great win against Carr, 12-9, and the chance. I remember kicked the field goals, I believe,
47.
Yeah, but it was
47 that he held the record for. I don't know if he still has that record or not.
But
in AAA.
Coach, we want to thank you for coming on, man.
Oh, I enjoyed it, Mike. I always enjoy it, and it's been fun. It's been fun.
Well, we just taking you down memory lane. I've told people this story so many times, but I mean, that Evangel game, I know it was the semis, but it's still the greatest game I ever called. But that was a lot of great games. That St. James game was good too, but Carr game too.
Oh, yeah.
But a great run in Cecilia won state in 95, and we just want to thank you for coming on. Jerry, you had anything to tell him before I let him go? I got to do my sponsors.
Yeah, you know, it's great hearing these memories because that's what makes Acadiana, the football here in Acadiana so special, especially when you have so much history to it. And I know covering St. Martin Parish schools, I was too young to cover it with Mike and Dave, but to hear these stories makes it very special. And I see it makes sense why when you go to Cecilia, how serious they take their football because there's a lot of history behind it. And Coach, I want to say thank you for coming on. It was a pleasure hearing these cool stories.
And Coach,
Coach
Danny Broussard said to tell you hi.
Oh, really? Well, Danny and I go way back too.
Texted me.
Geez, few years.
Well, thanks for coming on, Coach. I'll keep in touch. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Love you, Jerry. Y'all take care, guys.
Yes, sir.
Stay safe.
All right, Coach Mickey
Thank you,
Autrey.
too.
He's a good man. Ooh, just love those kids. But you know, he coached multiple sports. Let me do sponsors.